Stranded in a hostile realm known only as the Abyss, Sora Mukushima must fight to survive, grow stronger, and find a way back home. Driven by the desire to save his family and uncover the truth behind the monstrous invasion, he steps into a battle that will test not just his strength, but his very humanity. What kind of hell turned this kid into a weapon? Let's find out. The story began with Sora Mukujima, the protagonist, thinking in his sleep that he was here again. How depressing it was here. It was an island covered in smoke, with ruins of Western-style buildings, as if it spoke of the desertedness of the place. Suddenly, he noticed an incredibly powerful man and wondered if it was a man. He said with red eyes to let him come. He would wait for him at the edge of the abyss. In an instant, the protagonist woke up and noticed that it was that strange dream again. His father, Shoya Mukujima, shouted that they were late. MC got up and headed to the bathroom, thinking that he seemed to know the man from the dream. What about the underworld? Did he overdo it with his studies? His father, smiling, wrapped in a towel, put his hand on his head and asked if he overslept today. The protagonist replied with displeasure. Let him stop treating him like a child. He's already 15 years old. He exclaimed, so what? Let him look at his muscles. The protagonist nervously replied that he would never think of it. If they did not huddle in a tiny apartment, he would not have to see him naked every day. The father noted that as soon as he gets rich, he will live in a big house. Both he and Riku will have their own rooms. MC replied that he has been hearing this for 5 years. He laughed and said that life became easier as soon as his brother went to the army. The protagonist, brushing his teeth, thought that he had been there for 3 years already. He himself was planning to go to the army, but then he would have to say goodbye to a stormy life, with a slightly unreliable father who jokes a lot, and with a mother who is strict but very loving. Still, it is good with them. I wish these days would never end. Suddenly, a powerful earthquake began. The protagonist, looking out the window, thought that he always knew that peaceful life would end sooner or later. But what he definitely did not expect was such an end. He looked out the window and saw a huge tower appear right in the center of the city. MC thought that he had no idea back then how much the appearance of that tower would change the course of human history, but he knew for sure that the tower was connected to his powers. At this time, his mother, Yae Mukujima, called Riku, and he explained that everything was fine. He just needed to follow the orders of the self-defense forces, and then he could go home. The protagonist thought that his brother said this in a weak voice. After that evening, they lost contact with him. The news said that nothing was threatening people, they just needed to stay home. But this lasted until the news stopped broadcasting. Now the same information was played on the radio, and then the order to evacuate came. His mother left a letter for his brother, telling him that they were heading to a shelter. Everything he saw along the way seemed to hint at something. The soldiers driving by had a look of despair on their faces. Their cars were marked with horrible claw marks, and a sickening smell of decay was coming from inside. After a while, the whole family arrived at the gymnasium, a temporary evacuation shelter. MC thought that the shelter was full of refugees, but hardly anyone was talking. It was as if they were waiting for their death. But even in this silence, there were troublemakers. They tried to make their presence known in every possible way. Eiji Kagawa, a bully, approached a little boy and grabbing his hand shouted, "How dare he steal his bread?" He pointed his finger at his pocket in fear and replied that he did not steal it. Everyone got a loaf, he had already eaten his. The boy hit him with his knee and smiled and noted that he was not full yet. Would he mind if he took his bread? The boy, writhing in pain, agreed out of desperation. He happily said that they had decided his bread belonged to him. It would not last long anyway, he would not die. Suddenly, the protagonist's father grabbed him by the shoulder and menacingly asked why he was doing this. He understood the situation they were in. Eiji grinned and noted that he should worry about himself. He shouted furiously, "Let him give him back his bread." The boy, swinging his arm, exclaimed, "Let him shut his mouth." The father instantly kicked him and gave the bread to the boy. Eiji stood up and noted that he remembered him. The protagonist, watching this, excitedly called out to him. The father calmly replied, "Let him not worry, he would look after him." He thought that he would not forget this guy even after death. Eiji is a bastard who enjoys tormenting him. Suddenly, a soldier ran into the room and excitedly shouted that everyone should immediately leave the evacuation shelter through the back door and get into one of the trucks. One of the men asked with a serious face why they were doing this. The soldier excitedly replied that this was confidential information he could not say. He pointed his finger at him furiously and exclaimed that they first kept them locked up in their houses for 2 days and then evacuated them here. So he still can't say anything. What does he even pay taxes for? Suddenly, a powerful blow was heard at the door of the shelter. The soldier shouted in fear that they were here. Let them run quickly. The protagonist began to lead his parents away and shouted that they needed to hurry. He thought that he had a bad feeling. The soldier began to hold the door with his hands and shouted that he could not hold them back any longer. Let them quickly get into the trucks. In an instant, The demons knocked down the door and entered. MC, seeing this, wondered what the hell was going on. All the people ran out into the street in fear and started getting into the trucks. The protagonist shouted that there was no more room, let them get in first. His parents climbed into the truck and his father gave him his hand, when suddenly, the people standing behind shouted, "To hell with this kid!" There was no more room in the back. If he was going to hesitate, let him get lost. The protagonist ran to the side and shouted that he would get into another truck. He ran to the last truck, and when he started to climb in, they held out their hands to him. The protagonist happily started to climb in and thanked him. AG grinned and noted that it was his line. MC wondered in fear, why him of all people? The guy let him go and said, let him die instead of his father. He fell to the ground and people started running over him in a hurry. The protagonist covered himself with his hands and thought that it was too early for him to die. Let someone help him. Suddenly, the image of the man from the dream appeared and he said that he would wait for him at the edge of the underworld. After some time, the protagonist woke up on the ground. He asked in confusion, was it a dream? Where is he anyway? Suddenly, a goblin appeared next to him and tried to hit him. Sora instantly dodged and fearfully wondered where his mother and father were. Why was he alone here? Was this really hell and had he already died? The goblin, seeing that he was running away, threw his axe at him and slightly hit him. MC fearfully wondered why he was still not letting go. What was going on here? First, a huge tower that appeared out of nowhere. Then the bastard who threw him out of the truck, a mysterious old man. And now, monsters. The moment the goblin attacked him, the protagonist instantly went wild and, armed with a stone, killed him. After that, he fell to his knees and thought that if you look closely, he looks like a character from the game. What is this black number on his chest? Is this really his level? Suddenly, a black crystal flew out of the dead goblin and flew into the protagonist's body. He thought in fear, did it penetrate his body? Wait, did his wounds heal? And not only that, he also feels stronger. It turns out that defeating enemies increases your level, just like in the game. There must be others on this tiny island. MC took the goblin's axe and setting off on his way, thought that he would look around so that he would not be attacked suddenly. After some time, he went around the full circle, but there were no monsters or other roads. It turns out that there is only one way out. The protagonist approached the edge of the island, and seeing the floating steps, thought that these steps encircled the island, drowning in the clouds. This seemed doubtful. He began to descend, and thought that in games such an area is the territory of the main monster, and he would simply respawn if he fell. But whether this world resembles the game or not, he will not check. MC, descending, noticed the entrance and thought that he did it. The stairs end here. He went inside and saw a slab with a torch and a mysterious door in front of him. The protagonist approached the slab and thought that he had never seen such letters before, but they formed words that his brain understood. It was written on the slab that the fragments belonged to their carriers. Having collected everything, he would gain the right to leave the abyss. He thought with a smile, what is he in the abyss? He needs to collect all the fragments to get out of here? Good, now he's motivated. If you think about it, that monster was not that strong. He will survive and get out of here. MC walked up to the gate and opened it, thinking that the first tier of the abyss was a territory with an area of 900 square meters. The number engraved on the body of that monster was 1. The second tier was 1,800 square meters. On the monster was the number 2. The third tier is 3,600 square meters, and one of the 4 monsters had the number 3 on it. The fragments were only in the bodies of the monsters with numbers. This is the key to the next tier. The higher the number, the stronger the monster. But what worries him most is that these keys are becoming more and more difficult to find. The area of the tiers doubles each time, as does the number of monsters. However, he himself is also becoming stronger. As he moves along the tiers, he encounters increasingly diverse monsters. On the 12th floor, he met the monsters that attacked the shelter that day. But now they are no match for him. The main character, having destroyed all the monsters on the next tier, thought that there were so many monsters here that his senses began to dull. When he climbed to the 13th tier, the number of monsters reached 500 million. Finding the key became like finding a needle in a haystack. Some of the key monsters were guarded by groups of other monsters, while others were hiding in tiny caves. But what irritated him the most was the amount of time it took to kill them. However, no matter what it took, he would continue to move forward. After a while, MC climbed to the 42nd tier of the abyss, where the number of monsters was 2,199,23,255,552. He looked at them and wondered, what year was it? No, the concept of time was no longer important. There was only death and carnage. The death of monsters and the carnage that he was causing. One of the monsters tried to attack him, but the protagonist tore it to pieces in a flash, and then moved on to the others. After a while, he wondered how many monsters there were in total. He would note that first. The protagonist walked up to the wall and scratched another number with his nail, asking if it was time to find the key. Suddenly, a huge centipede appeared and destroyed the wall. He remarked that it was an impressive appearance. Could this monster really be the key? The protagonist quickly rushed to attack and thought that no matter how strong he was, it didn't matter. Even monsters that thought they were strong died in one hit. He destroyed the centipede in an instant and thought that for him, any strength had lost its meaning. MC furiously shouted, "Where is the key to level 42? Let this monster appear. It's had enough." At one point, 20 towers suddenly appeared all over the world. Before humanity had time to figure it out, monsters began to emerge from there, practically destroying the human race. Most were killed. That day became known as Doomsday. The few survivors awakened and gained access to the mysterious system. Those who awakened were granted colossal power. Human society was rebuilt. The awakened founded hunter guilds. At this time, the protagonist was chasing after Cerberus and shouted to let him show his stats. Suddenly, Cerberus was bound with chains and a portal appeared in the sky. He thought that he used an advanced teleportation scroll. He needed to stop it and interrupt the teleportation. Could there really be an exit? There really was an exit. MC made a powerful dash and headed towards the portal. A system window appeared, notifying that the summoning from the abyss could not transport more than 2 living beings. He furiously made another dash and thought that he would not let anyone stand in his way. At the same time, not far from City C on Earth, Yu Sonozaki, a level 19 mage, was running fearfully through the dense forest. She thought that she needed to get rid of them quickly. Suddenly, the girl fell into a trap and fell to the ground. Fighters approached her and surrounded her. Shosei Toshida, a level 38 barbarian, said to hand over the already advanced teleportation scroll. Choji Shido, a level 35 swordsman, pointed out that a level 60 scroll was not something a level 19 beginner could have. Give it to her, or else she would have no mercy. Aika, a level 31 druid, told him not to kill her. Yu screamed in fear that combat between hunters was forbidden. He was breaking the rules. Shosei stuck his sword next to her and said that he makes the rules here. Let her give him the scroll, and he will spare her hands. The girl, holding the item behind her back, excitedly noted that if she were in their place, she would not back herself into a corner. Aika excitedly exclaimed that she was going to use forced summoning. They should stop her. The swordsman swung his sword with incredible fury and shouted, "Let her hand over the scroll." Yu dodged and created a teleportation circle, saying that if she had to die anyway, she would drag them along with her. Shosei noted in fear that this was a forced summoning. Aika said in horror that no one would be able to control an advanced monster that was brought in this way. Let them stop her right now. Suddenly, a powerful electrical vortex appeared in the sky. The swordsman noted excitedly that there was an overwhelming force here. They would have a hard time. Suddenly, a level 3 Cerberus appeared from the teleportation scroll. Toji laughed and asked, "So much fuss for level 3 Cerberus?" And they were all wondering who she would summon. And to protect this scroll, she risked her life. Is this some kind of joke? Suddenly, the protagonist tore the Cerberus apart from the inside and got out of it. Choji shouted in fear, "Is this a humanoid monster?" MC shouted with incredible joy that he finally got out of there. He spread his arms out to the sides and began to laugh furiously. Shosei noted with fear that just laughing was making him shiver. Aiku noted in horror, "What pressure? Who the hell is this?" The protagonist approached her and, putting his hands on her shoulders, asked, "Are they on Earth?" She agreed with wild fear. He happily noted that he finally returned home. And were they cosplayers or something? They furiously attacked him and shouted that he should not underestimate the Tiger Roar Guild. In an instant, all their weapons broke upon impact with the protagonist's body. The swordsman noted with fear that he was a monster. MC grabbed him by the throat and shouted that he should show his number. Shosei asked with fear, what was he talking about? He let him go and ordered them to get out of here. In an instant, all the guild fighters ran away. Yu, looking at him, wondered how powerful he was, and those terrible scars on his body. Who the hell is he? It's unlikely that he's a monster summoned by a scroll from the abyss, right? The protagonist asked how many years had passed since the towers appeared. The girl excitedly answered that it had been 5 years. He asked if they were really on Earth. What kind of scroll was that? And why was she dressed like that? Yu fearfully explained that after the towers appeared, people had a system. MC asked if the world had changed much in the 5 years he spent in the abyss. She answered that City C had been subjected to 7 major invasions, and she had escaped from there. He thought that this was his hometown. The protagonist grabbed her by the shoulders and asked what state the city was in now. The girl excitedly answered that the place was almost destroyed. But they sent strong people there. They should be able to kill the monsters. He asked with a serious face how to get from here to City C. Yu pointed her finger to the side and said let him go there. With lightning speed, the protagonist set off. She was surprised to think that he went there alone. What a mysterious man he was. She needed to tell her sister all this. Meanwhile, the fighters from the guild were returning back. Suddenly, Fodel, the god of darkness, appeared next to them and noted that he felt his presence. He gives them 3 seconds to tell where he is. Shosei excitedly shouted, "Is he kidding? What is starting here again?" He killed the entire squad in an instant and noted that time was up. Meanwhile, in front of the tower, in the headquarters of the Tiger Roar Guild, the secretary reported that contact with Mr. Shosei's group was lost. The location of you and the scroll is unknown. Richard Mukai, a level 118 storm priest, nervously exclaimed that this was nonsense. The guys she recommended failed to defeat a level 19 summoner. The girl excitedly explained that their signals stopped coming in at the same time. He noted with displeasure that they were all killed in one hit. Let her find out who did this and catch you. Let her tell everything. He would kill anyone who dared to raise a hand against his people. Richt went to the window and noticed the protagonist, who was in a hurry. He noticed with a serious face that he smelled disgusting blood. Who is this guy? Isn't there a fallen zone? The guy thought that this was an invasion of a completely different level. Large forces had undoubtedly intervened in the confrontation with him. The tower that had been sleeping for 5 years had finally begun to move. He started to leave and exclaimed, "Let the assistant call off all search parties. The matter is urgent." After some time, MC reached the fallen zone of the city C and, sitting on the roof, thought that in the 5 years that he spent in the abyss, this place turned into hell. But in the abyss, the weak he became strong. His feelings became hardened. He himself became a monster. But thoughts about his family made him move forward. The monsters that he once feared now seem like small flies to him. He asks that his family take care of themselves. The protagonist entered one of the buildings and thought that City C used to be full of life, but now it is a wasteland. All the buildings are destroyed as if after a strong earthquake. And yet, there is no trace of monsters killing anyone. No one lived here after the evacuation was announced. He entered his apartment and said that he knew he would not meet anyone, but he came anyway. After all, this place is full of memories. MC noticed a note from his parents on the table, which said that everyone says that he died, but he and his mother refused to believe it. They took his things and put them in his room as they were before. They believe that he will come back. He shed tears and noted that they risked their lives to come here for him. The protagonist continued to read that they also hung up his favorite clothes from small to large sizes, so that he can always wear new ones whenever he comes back. There is a map of the road to shelter number 6 in the dresser. As soon as he reads this letter, let him promise to find them. They will be waiting for him. With love, his mom and dad. The protagonist put on new clothes and, taking the blade, wondered how strong he is now. If it is strong enough to end this apocalypse, maybe he will be able to return the lost days. He cut his hair and thought that he will move to the east, as shown on the map, straight to the 6th shelter. But the road goes through the ruins. It will be faster to pave his own way. The protagonist set off at lightning speed, killing all the monsters along the way. One of the survivors, drinking alcohol, asked what it was. It seems to him that he heard some loud sound. The other replied that he was drunk and now hears all sorts of things. Being a guard is very boring. Suddenly, the protagonist himself flew past them. They exclaimed in fear, "What was that?" A man ran up to them and noticed that he had filmed it on camera. Was that really a person? At this time, Eiji and his comrades, having entered the guild, cornered the girl. She screamed in fear, telling them not to come closer. She only came in search of food. He grinned and noted that she was a survivor of the wasteland. His comrades began to add that she was good. They had not seen a woman for a long time. Eiji, licking his lips, said with a smile, "Let her not worry, they were good guys. And they would take care of her." He pressed her against the rubble and noted that he would be gentle. How could one pass by such a body? Suddenly, MC landed next to them and asked, "Some things do not change, right?" Eiji shouted in confusion, "Who is there? If he interferes, he will definitely not get off easy. Let them grab him." The fighters ran to attack, but he neutralized them with 2 lightning strikes. The guy, taking out his sword, shouted furiously, "Who is he?" "He's from the Tiger War Guild. Let him just try to touch him. The guild won't let it go." The protagonist, with a calm face, lifted his hair and asked, had he already forgotten the face of the one he killed? Eiji asked in horror, was he really Sora? This just couldn't be. The guy, wild with fear, began to move away and scream, "Let him not come closer." Was he really alive? MC grinned, grabbed him by the throat, and, agreeing, said that he had to fight his way out of hell because of him. And now it was his time to go there. He thought that he would take away every bit of self-respect from him. This was his strength now. In the past, all he did was torture him. Feelings of pain, humiliation, helplessness, today he would give him back the opposite. The protagonist remembered how Eiji himself had asked in the past, why was he mocking him? Because destroying his self-respect was damn nice. Suddenly, he let him go and thought that he couldn't become like that. But if such worthless people continue to breathe, more people will die. MC called out to him and noted that he tried to kill him and failed, so he would spare his life. But still, he would not let him just leave. The guy asked in wild horror what he would do. He answered that for 2 years of hell at school, 1 hit. For bullying the weak, 1 hit. For throwing him out of the back of the truck and trying to kill him, 2 hits. Let him take 4 hits from him, and they will be counted. AG fearfully noted that if he hit him like this, he will die after the first hit. The protagonist grabbed him and, having dealt the first blow, replied that he should not worry because he will be soft. He began to deal incredibly powerful blows, and before the last one, he ordered him to get up. AG, with a disfigured face, said to just kill him. MC put his foot on his head and pressed him into the ground, and then thought that he had no limbs or sight left, so it was not bad. He ordered the remaining two to take him to the hospital, and let him not appear in front of his eyes anymore. After that, the protagonist set off again and thought that he had dealt with the cleanup. Now, it was time to continue home. After some time in the security zone of City C, one of the soldiers said that he was ready to kill in order to remain a sentry on the wall. The other agreed and added that at least here they did not have to actually fight monsters. Tanji Kagura, First Lieutenant, Level 31 Commander, approached them and with a serious face pointed out that they should not be such weaklings. If monsters appear, they better stay sane and do not fall from the wall. Let them not let down their guard. No one can say when they might come. Shoki Matsura, a level 22 private soldier, noticed that they were in the security zone. The monsters from Zone X would hardly get here. They just had to be on their guard. Suddenly, at that very moment, a level 45 Kraken child, a monster with a shell, attacked them. The soldier shouted that they should not be afraid and stay in line. The soldiers opened fire on it, but the monster only covered itself from the bullets. Shoki shouted in fear that his level was too high, their weapons were useless. In an instant, the monster made a dash and cut one of the soldiers. The soldier, holding explosives in his hand, ran to attack and shouted that he would show him. Suddenly, the Kraken wanted to strike, but immediately stopped and froze. Shoki asked excitedly, "Did it stop?" Tanji asked in horror, "Did something really scare it?" The soldier ran to attack again and shouted that he did not know what he was afraid of, but this was his chance. He threw it towards the monster and there was a powerful explosion. When the smoke cleared, the Kraken began to attack with incredible fury. The soldier fell to the ground in horror and asked, "Is there not a scratch on him? This can't be." Suddenly, to everyone's surprise, the main character landed on the monster and instantly destroyed it. Tanji, in wild shock, asked that the reason for his fear was him? The military looked at what happened in surprise and said that he killed the monster and survived the explosion. There are not many people with such destructive power of S rank. He thought that he had not seen him before. He needed to find out who he was at all costs. The system announced that the special ability Advanced Level Inspection allows the user to see information about the target. The closer the user in level to the target, the more accurate the information displayed. Tanji looked at him with a shocked look and thought that this could not be. He saw a red warning from the system that he should show his respect. He thought, he does not see any information? He began to fall to the ground, but the other soldiers caught him and asked what happened to him. The lieutenant fell. They should call a doctor. Sora approached one of the soldiers and said that he wanted to ask him something. "How far is the 6th shelter from here?" The soldier looked at him with a frightened look and said that it was 50 kilometers to the north. However, he would have to pass through Area X to get there. There, the advance of monsters is held back. They are lured there to minimize the damage from battles. There are a lot of monster hunters there. The other soldiers approached the monster and were very surprised when they saw rare items left behind by the monster. He looked at them with a serious expression and wondered if monsters drop items when they win in the real world. It all looks very much like a game. He asked how strong this monster was for them. The soldier said that it was level 45, which is a pretty tough opponent. He wondered if even that was difficult for them. He asked how many monsters were in that zone that were higher than level 45. The soldier said with a frightened expression that there were probably no more than 100. Otherwise, humanity would have died out a long time ago. The protagonist calmly thanked them for the information and said that it was time for him to go. The soldier decided to call out to him and said that perhaps the request would sound strange. He bowed and said that, however, he was asking him to go to Area X. A hunter as strong as he was would save many people. He was sure of it. He asked with a calm expression, "The shortest route to the 6th shelter was through this area, right?" After receiving a positive answer, he immediately agreed to this request. He said that he would go through Area X and kill any monsters that were unfortunate enough to get in his way. Sometime later, at the military camp on the front lines, the lieutenant woke up after losing consciousness and Shoki happily said that he had finally woken up. Tanji sat up and asked how long he had been unconscious. He said it had been about 10 minutes. The monster dropped recovery items. It had worked well. He asked with a serious expression, "What happened to the man who saved them?" He said that the man had gone north. He was very surprised when he heard this and asked what he had just said. He looked at the lieutenant and said that he went to the 6th shelter. He looked at him intently and asked, "Did he go through Area X?" Shoki agreed and said that he didn't seem to care. He didn't hesitate for a moment. Tanji turned away with a displeased look and said that he should contact the main command center immediately. The soldier was very surprised by what he heard and asked, should they contact the main command center? The lieutenant was sitting on the edge of the bed and thought that there were about 10 minutes left until the appointed time. He should make it in time. The soldier came back and said that he sent a message on the emergency radio. However, why would they contact the command center? He gave Tanji the phone and he said with a serious expression that this mission was different from the previous ones. The information was highly classified, so they didn't know anything. Area X, which serves as the base for the mission, is no longer where they hold the monsters. It is a bombing zone. At the same time, the military girl turned around and said that there was an emergency call from Area B-22. The chief commander Renji Kumagaya, a level 58 flame mage with a calm expression, said that she should connect them. She agreed and began pressing the buttons on the keyboard. Tanji's image appeared on the large screen and he said that the communication code was BW342222. This is Lieutenant Kagura. New information has appeared. A mysterious hunter has just gone to the bombing zone. He does not know about their mission. The commander looked at him with a calm expression and asked if he called to report his mistake. He refused and said that he felt it was urgent to inform him of the upcoming bombing. This man is very strong. We cannot allow him to die. Renji calmly asked what level this hunter was. The lieutenant with a worried expression said that he did not know. He, with a thoughtful expression, said that a hunter with an unknown level did not follow the rules and went to the bombing zone. He wanted him to contact him urgently. The girl said that he would most likely be dead by the time the message got through. He laughed at this and said that he lacked brains, but had a talent for humor. It seemed that they had not been trained well enough to be left alone. He was in no position to interfere with the affairs of her subordinates, but if he reported her to his superiors for obstructing the progress of the mission, she would be held accountable. Western Commander Mi Tonosaki, a level 73 golem tamer, looked at the idiot and wondered, was he seriously going to set up his own man when they needed to deal with the enemy? However, Kagura, whom he had trained so carefully, was trying to save a stranger, even if it meant canceling the mission. Just how strong was this man? She called the lieutenant and said that she believed that he had no intention of interfering with their plan. However, if his reason wasn't convincing enough, she would personally court-martial him. He was confused by this, so she asked the general if that would be okay with him, right? Renji looked at her with a displeased expression, then turned around and told the lieutenant that he should give them a reason that would be okay with them. Tanji agreed and said with a serious expression that the man had killed a level 45 Kraken child in one hit. She was surprised by this, and he said that this meant that he was a hunter with a rank higher than A. Mi asked with a surprised expression if that man was an S-rank soldier. Renji said with a thoughtful expression that that was impossible, since everyone with an S-rank was currently on missions. There were no confirmation signals coming from B-22. Why didn't he know his rank? He had the ability to see it after all. Tanji said that the problem was that he couldn't see his rank. To his shame, after using the ability on him, he passed out due to information overload. This means that he is at least level 100. They were surprised by this, and the chief commander said that this is indeed a very rare power, but this is not a reason to stop the mission. The Eastern Commander Nobuo Yuasa, a level 44 stone mage, agreed with him, and said that they cannot cancel their military tasks for such an uncertain reason. This mission involves thousands of troops from 4 different forces. This is enough to completely surround the bombing and security zones. It was originally planned that after the bombing, the garrison soldiers would kill the remaining monsters. However, if an emergency alert is made, the monsters will react to the sound and run to one place. If this happens, the territory will fall instantly and thousands of soldiers will die. Saving one in exchange for 1,000 is too risky, even if we are talking about an S-rank hunter. Mi thought it over with a serious expression and said that in the end she was rejecting his request. They couldn't waste so many people's efforts just to save one person. This decision was final. Tanji was very surprised by this, and the device immediately ended the connection. He squeezed the device in his hand in anger, and Shoki said with a worried look that he had done everything he could. He agreed and said that the end result was important. He looked down and noticed the car keys hanging from his belt. He stole the keys, and the lieutenant said loudly that he should go back because the bombing was about to start. He didn't listen to him and got into the car and said that there were still 6 minutes left. Tanji called out to him loudly and asked if he wanted to be court-martialed. He had to go back immediately. He didn't listen to him and drove to Area X anyway. The soldier called out to the lieutenant in surprise and asked if they should give him back. He said with a serious expression that they don't have to do that because he made the decision himself. He is sure that he understands what he is doing. Shoki continued driving along the road and thought with a tense expression that he must make it in time. At that time, he doesn't yet know that the person he was trying to save will become the hope of all mankind. He continued driving for a few more minutes and said that he lost track of him. Where did he go? This is the shortest route. If he can't find him, does that mean he's moving faster than the car? Next up is Zone X. Maybe he should turn on the loudspeaker? He'll definitely hear it, but it will also alert the monsters. Time was running out, so he reached for his radio and said it wasn't important. He was about to start talking and thought he was a disgrace to the army. He said loudly that this was the soldier he helped earlier. This zone was about to be bombed. He needed to evacuate immediately. He repeated his message again, and MC, who was fighting the monsters, heard him. He turned around at the voice and said that now it was clear why there were no hunters in the area. The monsters weren't a threat, but he wasn't sure he could survive the heat from the explosions. He should avoid pointless risks. That soldier had put his life on the line just to warn him. He couldn't let him die here. Shoki looked out the window of his car and asked if he heard it. There was very little time left. He noticed monsters walking towards him and said that he had indeed attracted the attention of the monsters. He was about to leave and said that he needed to get out of here. However, he was still there. At that moment, he very quickly killed the monster that was walking towards the car and knocked on the window. Shoki opened the window and said that he was incredibly glad that he was alive. Sora asked with a serious look, "What does it mean that the zone will be bombed?" The private looked at his watch with a worried look and said that time was up. At that moment, planes started flying above them, dropping bombs on Zone X. Many large stones flew into them due to the explosion, which scared the soldier very much. The protagonist calmly lifted the rocks in front of him to protect both of them from these stones. The girl at the military base called the major general and said that the bombing was over. Renji said with a serious expression that they should use the drones to find out how many monsters they killed and where the survivors were heading. She said that the drones did not detect any signs of life. He looked surprised by this and asked where all the monsters went. She said with a shocked expression that they were still in the bombardment area. The ones in the center of the bombardment were completely unharmed. He said with a displeased and surprised look that this couldn't be. Mi asked what the drones were showing. The girl pressed the buttons on the keyboard and brought up the image on many screens. She looked at it and wondered, were those the shields? Did the monsters do this? Wait, is there a person next to them? The girl said loudly that the monsters attacked the drones. They lost all contact with the drones. She asked with a serious expression. They were told that this wave was different from the others, but what was this? They knew about the drone reconnaissance. Nobuo became very worried about this and said loudly that they should evacuate all the soldiers from the garrison. Mi turned around and said loudly that it was urgent to announce a full retreat. They needed to hold the walls. The girl said with a worried look that they were not heading towards the walls. She looked at her with a worried look and asked, "Then, where are they heading?" She pointed to the map and said that they were heading towards Area B-22. She looked at the monitor in surprise and said that, however, that was where that mysterious hunter was heading. They should send all the remaining drones there. They need to find out what stopped the monster's advance. Shoki got out of the car and asked with a surprised expression, "Did the bombardment stop?" He started laughing loudly out of joy that he was able to survive. MC with a calm expression said that he was rejoicing too soon. If they survived, that meant the monsters would be okay too, and they were heading here. He ran up to him, pulled him down and loudly ordered him to duck. A drone fell next to them. The soldier noticed it and asked, "Did the monsters attack the drones?" This has never happened before. He looked up with a calm look and said that he would be surprised later. They saw many monsters heading towards them, and he said that they had guests. Shoki looked in surprise at the many monsters with their level, and said that this is the highest level group in this monster influx. Their leader is level 90. After the bombardment, there was not even a scratch left on them. They are finished. They will all die here. Sora stood calmly next to him and said that they are both unharmed. Since the bombardment did not harm the monsters, then they will just kill them with their own hands. He jumped very high towards the army of monsters and said that he should hide in the car. He killed all the monsters that came his way very quickly. One of them managed to strike with his weapon, but he easily stopped it with his hand. He pulled this huge weapon and the monster could not hold it. Immediately after that, he jumped very high and swung his fist. The monster put up a block with a huge shield, but he broke it and hit his fist in the head. With one blow, he killed this monster, stopped on his shoulder, and looked at the man who was next to him. He looked at him with a slightly surprised look and thought, did he not feel his presence? The stranger looked at him with a smile, released tentacles, and said that he was finally found. He very quickly restored the monster's head and called it the Seed of the Abyss. The monster looked at him with a wide smile, called him a thief, and said that he must give him back what belongs to him. The protagonist looked at him with a calm look and asked what he was talking about. The stranger with a smile began to use his energy and said that for stealing someone else's power, he must pay with his own life. He fired several arrows of dark energy from an unexpected direction, but this attack did not damage him. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that if this is all he can do, he will not be able to kill him. Immediately after these words, a huge monster hit him with his hand. A drone flew up to them and started filming what was happening. The stranger noticed this and wondered if Odin's raven was watching him. He was wrong. It was an imitation created by people. MC stopped the monster's attack with his hand and said that if he really wanted to kill him, he should take it more seriously. Immediately after that, he attacked him very quickly, but the stranger disappeared at the moment of his strike. He appeared on the roof of a building nearby and said how disgusting it was to be watched by vile people. These low-grade creatures irritate him. He pointed at the drone with his hand, after which one of the monsters immediately destroyed it. He looked at the sky and said that they must destroy every observer. The military man who was hiding in the house looked out the window and said that he broke his drone. He thought that, however, he somehow managed to complete his task. The reason why the monsters changed course is because of him. He is a hunter who faced the influx of monsters alone. He did not notice the monster who approached the window and said that he needed to report it to the commander. He noticed loud sounds nearby, after which the wall was pierced by the monster's tentacles, and immediately realized that he had been discovered. He was unable to escape from the monster and began to scream loudly in pain, which was heard by Sora, who was standing near that building. The stranger began to laugh very loudly and told his servants that they had to kill them. He looked at him with a serious expression and remembered what he had promised the soldier. Shoki tried to start the car, but due to the breakdown, he could not do it. He immediately jumped off the shoulder of the huge monster and thought that when hunting an enemy, you need to start with their leader. In order to save as many people as possible, he would have to kill those monsters. The huge monster tried to attack him with its fist, but he dodged it and thought that after merging with this person, the monster's striking power increased. A stranger began to crawl out of his shadow, which he immediately noticed and said that he was very persistent. The protagonist noticed his face and thought that they were somewhat similar. His opponent pulled out a sword made of dark energy, from which he felt a powerful surge of energy and danger. He swung his sword, again called it the Seed of the Abyss, and said that it would kill him. He struck and said loudly that this was his destiny. He dodged this blow, after which he struck his hand with a very strong fist. Because of this, the stranger dropped his sword, and he immediately grabbed it. Immediately after that, he struck a strong blow with a sharp movement, but his opponent managed to disappear again. MC noticed that he appeared on the shoulder of a huge monster and wondered, did this not work either? Maybe he just imagined it? The surge of that energy is very similar to the power of the abyss. The stranger looked at him with a very displeased expression and asked, stealing someone else's weapon, is that all he can do? He waved his hand, causing the sword in his hand to disappear, and he thought that this was definitely the power of the abyss. It seemed like it had a lot of uses that he didn't know about. This fight was going to be long. First, he needed to get that soldier to safety. He walked up to the car and asked, he wasn't afraid of heights, was he? Shoki said that he wasn't afraid of it. Immediately after that, he lifted the car and said that he would have to fly. The stranger loudly called him a fool and said that he should not treat the power of the abyss so lightly. He created a large ball of energy above his head and said that the strong do not exist to protect the weak. He used the Eye of Darkness technique and loudly said that they exist in order to become even stronger. He launched this huge ball at him and loudly said that he should die along with this weakling. Sora looked at it with a calm expression and thought that it was too fast. Even if he ran, it would catch up. He put the machine on the ground, jumped up to this ball, and loudly said that in that case, he should just destroy it. He threw a punch and thought, did he fail? It seems that he did nothing at all with this attack. He noticed another clot of energy that was inside and said that it turns out that this is the true form. He was distracted by the fact that he heard Shoki scream loudly in fear. He turned around and saw dark energy attacking the car. He said with a worried look that he should get out of the car. He looked at the streams of dark energy with a scared look, but the stranger said that he should not be afraid. He would return him home. Immediately after that, he pierced the car with several stakes of dark energy. The protagonist became very angry because of this and began to attack these spikes of energy. His opponent stood on the roof of the car and said that he did not need to be so zealous. He did not answer him anything to this and broke the spikes with his hand. He took Shoki out of the car with the energy and said that as he could see, he was not dead yet. He showed his face while he was suffering because of this energy and said that it was even smiling at him. He used the necromancy skill and began to laugh very loudly. When he calmed down, he said that he had such a wonderful destiny to watch those he cherished die before his eyes. MC walked towards him with a serious expression on his face on the spikes of energy and looked at him. He remembered his past and asked if he also liked to destroy other people's self-esteem. The stranger used the skill Obsidian Storm to attack him and said loudly that he shouldn't state the obvious. He continued walking towards him, didn't dodge the many rocks that left wounds on him, and asked if he really thought so. He jumped to the ground, swung his fist, and said that trash like him really pisses him off. After that, he delivered a very strong punch, broke the spikes of energy, and threw the car into the air. As soon as the car hit the ground, he jumped higher and caught Shoki, who had become a zombie. He looked at him with a mad smile and tried to attack, but it was pointless. Sora locked him in the car and apologized for dragging him into this. Immediately after that, he turned to the stranger and ran towards him very quickly to attack. He punched him, but he disappeared again and said it was useless. He appeared behind him with a sword in his hand and said that a newbie who couldn't even handle the power of the abyss couldn't hope to defeat him. Unexpectedly for him, he turned around very sharply and threw him aside with a strong punch. After this attack, he wiped the blood off his fist and said that he was no match for him. The monster ran up to them very quickly, and the stranger couldn't believe what had happened. He looked at him in surprise and asked how he could hit him. The protagonist flew up to him with incredible speed and told this idiot that people tend to grow. He became worried when he noticed him and immediately moved to the monster's shoulder. He looked down with a very displeased look and asked loudly if he had really learned to control the power of the abyss by watching his actions. He lost sight of him and asked loudly where he had gone. He turned around abruptly and saw him appear behind him and already raised his fist to attack. He immediately teleported to the roof of the building and said that he was a harder opponent than he expected. MC looked at him with a serious expression and said that he could escape from him, but he would see how he escaped from this. He threw a very strong punch and released a powerful energy that cut off the monster's arm and destroyed the building. It began to recover again, and he thought that then he would aim for the core of the real body. He grabbed the dark energy coming out of the monster's body and said loudly that he would be crushed. The monster could not believe it. His attack worked, and this huge monster began to disappear. He looked at the stranger, who was standing next to him, and said loudly that he would be next. He began to concentrate a large amount of energy above his head and said loudly that he would remember this. He used the Shadow Unity skill and began to suck out the dark energy from the monsters that were standing nearby. Due to the large amount of energy concentrated in one place, a very strong wind arose. As soon as he finished using his skill, he immediately disappeared. Sora noticed this and asked, did he use such a technique just to escape? He threw his jacket on the ground and said that his clothes were ruined. He looked at the photo with a serious expression and said that it was good that at least the photo of his parents was intact. He returned to the car where the dead Shoki was lying, opened the door and said that he probably had a family waiting for him too. He took the token from him and then buried him nearby. As soon as he finished, he started to leave with a serious expression and thought that he would come back with him. It was unlikely that the guy using the shadows was finished. He had absorbed so many shadows that he could attack at any moment. He couldn't let him get to the shelter first. He ran very fast and thought that he needed to get there as soon as possible. After some time, Mi came to the scene and loudly told the soldiers that a squad of drone operators should thoroughly inspect the area. They should make sure that not even a mouse could slip past them. The rest should remain extremely vigilant. A soldier looked at the tablet screen with a very surprised look, called out to the commander, and was about to say something about the monsters. She looked at the battlefield with a serious expression and said that they were all defeated. She turned to them and loudly said that he should check the drone recordings and report back if he found anything. She looked at the battlefield and thought that there were clear signs of a past battle. That strong hunter that Lieutenant Kagura reported not only survived the bombardment, but also destroyed all the monsters from the influx. One of the soldiers loudly called out to the commander and said that the memory card in this drone was not damaged. He will show the recording right now. She walked up to him, picked up the tablet, and looked at the monitor with interest. She thought that it was Private First Class Matsura who had gone to the bombing zone and must have been that hunter. One of the soldiers walked into the place where the boss of this wave was cut and noticed bright energy. Coming closer, he saw the notification system about such items as a special energy potion that constantly increases the user's magical power, A-rank weapon, an ancient royal dagger. There was also a large cube that could not be identified. The second soldier, who was standing on the monster's body, called out to him and asked what he found there. He grabbed all of these items and said loudly that he found nothing. Immediately after that, another soldier jumped down next to him and asked, were these left over from the boss of the surge? They seemed to be quite rare items. Appropriating items obtained by a squad is a crime. He knows what to do, right? He looked at the items he found with a worried look and asked with a serious look, How will they divide it? The soldier pointed to the cube with a smile and said that he could calm down because he only needed this thing. He refused and said that legendary items were sure to be found in such boxes. The soldier put his hand on his shoulder and said with a sly smile that he shouldn't misunderstand him. He had no other choice. He took the cube, remained standing in the same place, his eyes lit up, and he said that he had finally gotten the golem's relic. After some time, the protagonist reached evacuation shelter number 6 and said that he had finally made it here. He looked at the soldiers who were defending this place and thought that it looked like they hadn't been attacked yet. He went with the rest of the people to the shelter and attracted the attention of the people around him. He thought that he didn't feel his presence nearby. Moreover, the presence of anyone strong either. However, since there were no strong people here, this place would sooner or later be destroyed. Suddenly, he noticed a man in front of him and thought, is he blind? The blindfolded man asked if his blood was very thick. Did he come from outside? He confirmed this, which made him laugh out loud and say that he understood him, which made him happy. He was asking his grace to trust him. He had no evil intentions. He only wanted to buy information about the outside world from him. The information he needed meant a lot to him. The MC looked at the money he had taken out and wondered, was it the local currency? He said with a calm expression that he would tell him what he knew. The man said that he was glad to hear that. He said that, however, he wanted to ask a question first. Why did the priest call him His Grace? He felt like he was pretending. The man laughed and said that he could see right through him. Dressing like that was just his hobby. He looked at him with a serious expression and asked, did hiding his eyes also apply to that? He started laughing with a worried expression and thought that he was being too pushy. He took off his eye patch and said that he had recently contracted an eye disease. Sora looked at him with a serious expression and thought that he recognized that scary light even with his eyes closed. He must have a reason for hiding his power. It seemed like there was a wolf in sheep's clothing hiding in this shelter. He asked, so what did he want to know? He was a little surprised by this and asked if it was okay to ask now. He was interested in what was going on outside. Armed soldiers had gathered on the walls and seemed to be preparing for battle. He was sure that normal people hadn't noticed, but he had heard explosions. Would he mind telling him what that was? He thought about it for a moment and then said with a wide smile that, to be honest, he himself wasn't sure yet. He was going outside on business when he heard an explosion from the southwest and was so scared that he dropped the letter and was forced to use his t-shirt as a makeshift sign. The man was surprised by this and thought, so did that mean he was hiding his power too? He thanked him for the information about the southwest and said that he helped him a lot. The protagonist took the money from him, looked at him and thought, did he go alone in an unknown direction? How many fighters of his level are here? It is still impossible to sense them. Why do they allow such a suspicious person like him to move freely? Maybe people are treated more leniently now that they all have a common enemy? After that, he went to the store to buy clothes and thought that the money the monk gave him was enough for new clothes. Now it's time for him to find his parents. He should start with the old-fashioned way. He approached a girl on the street, showed a photo, and asked if she knew the people in the photo. She was very surprised when she looked at it, after which she immediately left and said that she did not know anything. He was embarrassed because of this and thought that she seemed to have seen a ghost. Is everyone here that wary? He noticed a cheeky guy walking down the street and thought he might have to ask him. The guy called out to him to get his attention. He looked at him with a frighteningly serious look and asked what he wanted. The guy looked at him with a serious but worried look and said he didn't look like he was from around here. He was interrogating people with a photo in the middle of the night. What century was he even from? He showed him the photo and asked if he knew these people. The guy asked if he was picking on everyone like this. He looked surprised at what he saw and asked where he got their photo. He asked if he knew them. He looked at him with a serious look and asked what business he had with them. The MC said with a serious look that he was their son. He looked very surprised by this and asked if he was that kid. He started to flex his hand and asked with an indignant look if he was laughing at him now. He didn't have time to do anything because he noticed a truck that was driving quickly towards them. The truck that was carrying the corpse of the monster crashed into him, and it stopped against him. The guy was very surprised by what happened and asked, what happened? Sora stood there with a calm expression, apologized, and asked if he could repeat what he said earlier, because he didn't hear? The guy looked at him with a worried look and said loudly that it really was him. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. He pointed his finger and said that he should just go ahead. That's where he would find their house. He walked in that direction and thanked him for that. He waved his hand at him and told him that he should take care of himself. Right after that, he started running away with a worried look and thought that things were bad. He needed to gather everyone. The main character was walking down the street and asked if the bandit knew where his parents lived. He thought that if he thought about it, his father was kind to everyone he met, and his mother too. This world just uses such good people. However, everything is fine. Now he will be around. He reached the end of the street and said that it must be here. He saw a very long fence around a big house and asked, "Do they both live here?" He stopped at the gate and thought that many people had fled. It seemed that there were plenty of empty houses. He knocked and heard his father's voice asking, "Are you done with work today?" His father opened the door and said loudly, "Welcome." The protagonist was very surprised when he saw him. He asked loudly, with a very serious expression, "Who was he?" He looked at him with a slightly confused look and said, "It was him, Sora." This surprised him very much and he asked, "What did he just say?" They moved to a more comfortable place to talk, and soon his mother entered the room with drinks on a tray. She sat at the table and asked, "They still haven't started talking?" Her husband told her that he found it hard to believe. He was nothing like the Sora he remembered. At times like this, you have to resort to it. MC didn't understand what he was talking about, and he said with a sly grin that this was an exchange of secrets between a father and son. Of course, he didn't want to expose himself in front of his wife, but if he didn't answer the questions, he wouldn't get out of here in one piece. He looked at the ceiling and mentally told his assistant, Ochiai, that if he said anything even a little suspicious, let him deal with him. Ochiai meanwhile was watching them from a small crack in the ceiling, and Sora, noticing him, thought, "Is this his accomplice?" Apparently, he is still cautious. But with such reliable protection, they can relax. His father suggested him to start, and he smirked as he told his sidekick to get ready. He was about to hear something he shouldn't have. After that, he told his father that he went to a housewife support group cooking class every weekend. Shoya was very surprised to hear this and thought, how does he know this? Ochiai, meanwhile, imagined his boss cooking and became nervous. MC said that he also secretly attended ballet classes every week. Then Ochiai imagined his boss in a full skirt, performing pirouettes. Shoya glanced nervously at the ceiling and he, noticing his gaze, immediately hurried to hide, which caused a loud sound. An awkward atmosphere reigned in the room for a few seconds, and then Shoya smiled nervously and said that it was possible, but not only his son could know this. Sora asked, that is, should he tell something about their family? He confirmed it and asked with a smirk, can he do it? He confidently confirmed it and told him not to say later that he didn't warn him. The man became nervous, but he still told him to go ahead, and then he pointed to the weapon rack and said that this Japanese sword was just a copy. Ochiai meanwhile frowned, and his boss became very nervous and told him not to joke like that. Does he have proof? He took one of the swords and said that there was a bite mark from his brother on the hilt. Then Ochiai became even more surprised and thought, didn't this bite appear when the leader's hands were tied and he grabbed the sword with his teeth, killing 38 people? MC meanwhile pulled the sword out of the sheath, and Ochiai thought that he was bragging, but he was sure that his goal was to lull the leader's vigilance and finish him off. Then Sora demonstrated that this sword was not real and pressed on the tip, and it retracted. Then Ochiai and his boss were very surprised. Shoya called Sora an idiot and immediately hugged him, exclaiming that they thought he was dead. It was really him, their son at home. He burst into tears and said that if only he knew what they were thinking all this time. They searched everywhere for him, and before he knew it, he became the boss. And now this same boss is shedding tears. How insignificant it is. He asked his son to bring that man down, while Ochiai thought that the boss had spent his whole life under a rain of blood, and he had never seen anything like this. He suddenly realized that he had caught the head of the family, a man who valued honor above all else, in such a state, and he became very nervous. He decided to quickly leave there, so as not to be killed for this, but MC punched his hand through the ceiling and grabbed his leg, smiling and saying that his father wanted to talk to him. Now there were 4 of them sitting at the table, and Sora's father said that out of all his guards, he was the most talkative. MC continued for him, saying that if word got out, it would be all his fault. Poor Ochiai cowered in fear and swore to keep his mouth shut, and they both loomed over him menacingly, and he thought that now he had no doubts. They were definitely father and son. Yae told them not to scare him so much, which made him very happy, and he looked at her with tears in his eyes, and she said that he really should keep quiet. He got upset again, and her husband irritably pointed out that at least he didn't tell them that he farts and snores in his sleep. She smiled nervously and pointed out that he had just done it himself, and Sora looked at them with a smile, thinking that he had just gotten out of the abyss again. Now he was really home. The peaceful atmosphere was broken by loud footsteps behind him. The same guy burst into the room with backup and excitedly told the boss that some blonde guy was looking for him. MC smiled and asked, is he talking about him? Seeing him here, the guy got really nervous and shouted in horror that it was him, after which he pointed his finger at him and said that even though he was strong, there were more of them. Is he planning to do something to their boss? Is he really from Tiger Roar? Noticing how his legs were shaking from fear, he grabbed his knees and looked at him threateningly, after which he patted him on the shoulder and turned to his father, offering him to introduce them to each other. He told his subordinate with a smile that this was his son, who had disappeared 5 years ago and had finally returned. He wanted to tell him about his level, but realized that he didn't know what kind of power he had. He grabbed his head in his thoughts, and Sora, noticing that he was hesitating, said that he had no system. Everyone was surprised by this news, and one of his father's subordinates asked if he had survived in the Fallen Zones for 5 years without a system. The guy said that if he had no system, then no matter how hard he trained, he would not have been able to rise above level 10. His comrade said in bewilderment that he insisted that he was strong, but in fact he was a newbie without a system. The guy laughed nervously and said that he was probably wrong. He remembered how he stopped the truck and thought, if he really was a newbie, how did he manage to not get hurt in such a collision? Noticing the doubt on his face, MC suggested that he try to see his level with his system, and he looked at him in shock, after which he said that since he did not have a system, he did not have basic information. The system allows you to see the levels of monsters, but if there is no special ability, then nothing will work. Sora's father said that inspection is a rare ability, not all hunters have it. The guy confirmed his words and MC smiled and told his father to look at him, then thought about how he could get at least some information about the abyss. After that, Shoya opened the system window, and everyone crowded around him to see his son's level. Only his wife was standing next to Sora. He asked her if she wanted to see his level, and she told him that it was enough for her that he was now next to her. Besides, she would know everything anyway. Her husband let out a surprised sigh and said that no matter how much he tried, the result was the same. Nothing can be seen. There are only 2 reasons. Either it's because he doesn't have a system, or his level is so high that he can't see anything. And yet, he can see the name. Moreover, he survived for 5 years. If he were a newbie, he would have died by now. It turns out that his level is too high for him to see it. What has he been doing all these 5 years? His son's face darkened, and his wife asked with a smile, shouldn't they be happy? She turned to her son with a gentle smile and put her hand on his face, saying that he was a strong boy. He must have gone through a lot to come back. He looked at her with sadness in his eyes, and then remembered everything that had happened to him over the years, and couldn't hold back his emotions and cried along with her. He hugged her to his chest and said that everything was fine now. He was home. He asked her not to cry, and his father, looking at them with tears in his eyes, closed the system window and sent his subordinates out, saying that after a long time they were finally reunited with their child. He left with them, quietly closed the door, and asked them, what about Jiro and the others? 2 hours had passed and they still hadn't returned. He went to sort out some business and MC and his mother were left alone. He asked her about his brother and already suspected the worst, but his mother reassured him, saying that he was fine, but was currently in the army. She showed him a photo of him and asked if she could call him since he was back. He had been fighting on the front lines all this time, as if he was trying to avenge him. Sora remembered himself with his brother as a child and said that he hadn't seen him for a long time, after which he asked if she held a high position here. She confirmed it, but the reason everyone respects her is because she is a priestess. She has a lot of healing abilities, which allows her to be a great support, and she can even make prophecies. He was very surprised and asked if since she is a priestess, she can see right through him. She told him that she can't see other people's abilities, but he was still worried about how she knew this. She said that she can make prophecies, and she knew that one day he would return. Meanwhile, someone came to the residence. Upon opening the door, the guard was greatly surprised to see Vice Chief Jiro Iwashima and his men. Shoya came out to greet him and spread his arms wide to the sides, rejoicing at his return, but noticing his sad appearance, he immediately came closer to him and quietly asked, "What's wrong?" He asked someone to observe from behind the scenes how things were going. Did they find out anything? He told him that as he suspected, Tiger Roar had teamed up with the army. They gave the army the monster carcasses as usual, but that guy with the laptop started picking on him during the inspection. He made up excuses and only gave them half the points, although he reported the full value to his superiors. During the inspection, all the difference went to Tiger Roar. After hearing the report, Shoya frowned and thought that Tiger Roar, which was supposed to remain neutral, was already doing something like this, and it would only get worse. He said that they couldn't sit back and humiliate themselves, it would affect the future of the city. He told Jiro with a smile to forget about it, and instead eat and rest. After that, he took out his sword and added that he would go to Tiger Roar later and settle the matter. They needed to show them that the Unification Guild was not naive. MC, meanwhile, heard the whole conversation and thought that thanks to that dark shard, all his abilities are working at full capacity. And not only that, but also his senses have become sharper. Now he can hear from far away. It seems that Kagawa and those bandits are connected with Tiger Roar. Will his father go to negotiate with them? He is a little worried. He left the room and told his father that he will go with him, and one of his subordinates nervously thought, does he want to interfere? Then he will have a chance to see his true power. Jiru meanwhile looked at the stranger questioningly and asked, "Who is this?" Shoya introduced him to his son and told him that 5 years ago he disappeared in the Fallen Zone, and he asked what his level is. He told him that his son has no system, and he looked at him, asking, "So is he an ordinary person?" He thought that without a system in any shelter you will become a dead man, not lasting more than 3 days. There is, of course, a chance to survive with elite statistics and good survival skills, but without professional skills, you will turn into dead weight faster than it comes to combat. Because of this, he decided not to involve him in the affairs and told the boss that this is good news. But since he just returned, he is probably tired. Why shouldn't he stay here? He replied that he was right and asked his son to stay at home with his mother, and she said with a smile that she had an idea. She would show him the house in their territory. But he was not particularly happy with this turn of events and realized that they thought that he would be of no use in combat. But he expected this. For people with the system, he is an ordinary person. He admitted the possibility of staying here. After all, he had not yet formed a complete picture of this shelter. There are monsters here that are targeting him, and it is better for him to hide his strength so as not to involve his family in this. He agreed to stay, and his father breathed a sigh of relief, but his subordinate was very upset because he missed the chance to see his power. After that, Shoya led them to sort things out with another guild, and Sora looked after them. His mother told him not to worry too much. He was just worried about him. They met after a long time. Of course, he does not want to put him in danger anymore. He wanted to object, and she patted his head, assuring him that everything will be fine, he is strong. She constantly turns to visions to see the future, and they say that he will return safely. He waved her hand away and embarrassedly said that he is not a child anymore, after which he thought that his mother really makes predictions to foresee danger, but Tiger Roar got involved with the army, so now his father will conflict with them more often. He asked what the situation was in the shelter, and why did Tiger Roar treat them badly. She told him that after the Day of Judgment, the hunter guilds founded by the Awakened joined forces with the military to manage the shelters. His father created a unification guild and cooperated with the military here in the 6th shelter, hoping to find him. The guild grew a lot, as everyone in them was driven by the desire to find their family members. They are busy maintaining order, collecting supplies from the battlefield, and fighting monsters while the military participates in breakouts and attacks on the towers. His father is kind, then he is reluctant to send his people to help with the breakouts. That is how he managed to keep this place intact for 4 years. But a few months ago, a large hunter guild from the 4th shelter, Tiger Roar, came here to establish a branch. Since then, conflicts have not stopped. MC asked why the military didn't intervene, and she told him that the enemies were getting stronger and the army couldn't hold them back anymore. But Tiger Roar volunteered to clear the tower, and their strength had become so great that the military had to rely on them. Information about going to the tower is so valuable that it can't be ignored. Moreover, Tiger Roar has an awakened one who was chosen by the tower deity, Ezra. He is their trump card. Sora became interested in the tower deities, and his mother explained it in more detail. There are tower leaders. Their power is almost comparable to that of a god in a close sense. If he passes the test of a deity, he will become an Esra and receive divine power. They are considered gods outside the towers, and they also become guardians inside the tower walls. Tiger Roar currently has the most Ezra. Since each Ezra has absurd power, Tiger Roar is quickly acquired by all the neighboring guilds. The locals love his father's guild, but they have never cleared the towers. They are the only guild that is suffering without Ezra. MC noted that the situation was pretty bad and asked if people loved the guild, then why did they act like Yakuza? His mother told him with a smile that it was just her personal preference, and he looked at her with a strange expression. She took him to another room and asked what the difference was. Everyone was happy after all. She pushed him into the room and told him to take a bath. He was tired, right? He should call her if he wanted her to rub his back. He felt uneasy and said that he could handle it himself, and she remarked that he had really grown. When she left him alone in the room, he closed his eyes and concentrated. Feeling her moving away from the room, he thought that it was good that she left. He had no idea that the situation was that serious. But he couldn't help but worry about his father. So he went to the window, opened it, and went to help him. His mother, watching his silhouette retreat, thought with a smile that she had asked him to rest. Sometimes it was so hard with children. Sora's father went to the Tiger Roar Guild with the members of the Unification Guild. Meanwhile, his son was on the roof of a building nearby. He looked around the city and thought, the light was only on in the center, which was good. It would be easier for him to find his way. He looked down at his father, and everything in front of his eyes began to swim. He wondered why he felt dizzy, and he rubbed his eyes, thinking that after being strengthened by the fragment of the abyss, he did not even catch a cold. Suddenly, someone's voice appeared, calling him an abyss seed and saying that it would not let him escape. He immediately recognized that voice. It was that guy, Fudel. He started looking around for him and thought, is he hiding his presence? He does not sense him at all. After all, he snuck into the shelter. At that moment his head started spinning even more, and Fudel said that he won't let him escape. It's all about his soul. It's marked by him. It appeared at his left shoulder, and he, noticing it, immediately struck with his fist, but nothing happened. His hand went through his head. It turns out it was an illusion. Fudel said again that he won't let him escape, and he thought, so this is the mark? Fudel kept repeating the same words, and then a bright beam of light hit him, and someone asked what he was doing there at night. MC cursed. He screamed too loudly, and that's why they found him. They ordered him to get down, and he decided to escape. Jumping from roof to roof, he thought, the illusion disappeared? As soon as he landed, he looked around and Fudel's head appeared again. He remembered the moment when the illusion disappeared and thought, was it because of the light then? He decided to check it out and stood under the light of a street lamp and realized something. If he is in the dark for 7 seconds, the mark is activated and he starts to feel dizzy. When he loses his composure, the line changes. He decided to try it and Fudel appeared, saying through his mouth that his soul was marked by him. Passers-by who heard such phrases thought that he had 8th grader syndrome, and he thought embarrassedly that he was the only one who saw this face. He decided to take a walk and thought that when he went out into the light, a shrill noise began to be heard in his head. After a while, the mark goes away and he stops seeing it. This didn't happen before because he was in a room with light? That must be it. The illusion appeared again, and he, looking at his head, thought that he could probably find him and launch a surprise attack at any time, so he must not let his guard down. But first, he needs to find his father. Fudel kept repeating the same phrase, and he couldn't take it anymore, and told him to shut up, which made him catch the gazes of strangers. He walked through the streets of the city, and when a car passed by, he only made sure that he didn't appear in the light. If it was like his mother said, then the military no longer needed the Unification Guild, which meant that his father was in danger. He didn't know how many strong people were in this shelter, but the army allied with Tiger Roar would never sit on the sidelines. There was a high chance that they would try to destroy the illusion of unification. In that case, he would protect his parents even if he had to kill everyone. He stood frozen in place and wondered if they would ever be able to return to the old peaceful days. He noticed a crowd ahead and hid behind a pillar. It seemed like he had reached the right place. He wondered how his father would handle this conversation. He remembered how he had taught him as a child that in conflicts, violence is the last resort and thought, will he also endure until the end now? But everything turned out to be completely different from what he expected. Noticing something unusual, he peeked out from his hiding place, and several guild members exclaimed with smiles that everything was finally starting. It had been a long time since the boss took out his sword. The last time, he left a nearly 20-meter scar on his opponent. Bright sparks appeared around Shoya, and his eyes glowed red. He said the name of his opponent, Tsuchida, with a smile, and then pulled his sword out of its sheath and swung it, ordering him to come out and fight him. With his sword, he cut the building in half and parts of it immediately collapsed with a roar, after which the delighted cries of the guild members were heard, and Sora was in complete shock. After looking at the result of his blow, Shoya put his sword away and sighed heavily, while MC called out to some guy and asked, was the boss always like this? He responded with a smile and asked, didn't he know? The boss is known for rushing into battle without thinking. Sora was very surprised and asked, didn't he really say that violence is the last resort? He told him that at first he said so, then he still believed that the military would settle everything. A lot of time has passed since then. The military doesn't care about skirmishes as long as the hunters do their job and the civilians don't starve to death. They won't bother breaking up anyone. That's why the fastest way to settle a matter is with your fists. If you can't win in a fight, then there's no point in opening your mouth. Talking won't help here. Hit first, talk later. MC frowned, thinking that he thought that the strong avoid fights, judging by that monk. Did he misunderstand something, or is it okay to go on a rampage if he has power like his father? Or is that why that monk covered his eyes? Meanwhile, that monk, Yukio Shizenji, was standing on the roof of the building and watching the military helicopters circling above the monster's body. He activated his keen eye ability and took a closer look at the monster. It's level 9, but it looks like it was torn apart, but there are no traces of heavy weapons or anything else on it. The only thing that scares him is how many strong people are here, so he needs to act. After that, he covered his eyes with a blindfold and left. And Tsuchida meanwhile came out to Shoya and started cursing at him in every possible way, asking if he thinks everything is the same as it was when this shelter opened. He told him that a lot has changed. At least there are annoying idiots like him now. He should have finished him off back then. Tsuchida looked back and asked, why doesn't he do it now? Or is he scared? His words angered Shoya, and he said that he would not let him get away with this. Then he began to pull out his sword from its sheath and his enemy. Noticing this, became very nervous and mentally told his ally that he had provoked him enough. Let him finally come out. Or is that not enough? Shaking with fear, he pointed his finger at Shoya, calling him a coward, and said that he can't even draw his sword. It would be better for him to become Tiger Roar's fuel. With this, he provoked Shoya and he rushed towards him, swinging his sword, but he responded by putting up a shield and defending himself from the blow. Meanwhile, Tiger Roar's ally, who remained in the shadows, was glad that he fell for the trick, then came out to them and ordered them to stop. It turned out to be Osamu Shirai, a level 63 assassin. He looked at Shoya with displeasure and asked how he had the nerve to start a fight in the hideout. Seeing that he was on Tiger Roar's side, the members of the Unification Guild were very indignant, and Sora thought, is this the soldier who supports them? Is it a coincidence or not? He feels that there are many people in this building. He is definitely not here by chance. The soldier came closer, and Shoya thought, is this the one who helps Tiger Roar? The man said that according to Article 15 of the Temporary Shelter Security Law, duels are prohibited. Violators can be punished with imprisonment for 15 days or more, depending on the severity of the violation, or execution. He smirked and asked Shoya if he was ready to carry out their order. Now he understood what they were planning. He hid the sword and thought that they provoked him, and then decided to use the law to arrest him. He is not worried about his corruption being found out. He can't even believe that they decided to brazenly frame him. Once he goes to prison, they can't extend his term indefinitely or even make him disappear by accident. Without him, the Unification Guild will fall to Tiger Roar and the others. But why would the military go so far as to upset the balance? Is there a power struggle going on among them? He doesn't know what he's planning, but he can't confess to a crime. He smiled and said that he was wrong. There was no duel. As someone who supports the Unification Guild, he can't confess to a crime without evidence. The soldier then pointed to the cut on the house and said with a smirk that this sword mark was clear evidence. Shoya chuckled and said that he must be joking. True, this was evidence, but only that he was trying to redesign the building, not start a duel. Osamu approached him and said that he seemed to be misunderstanding something. It's not up to him to decide this. If he says this indicates a duel, then it is. He lost the moment he came here. Now he should just give up. Noticing the many armed soldiers in the building, Shoya became nervous, and his guild members began to support him, and the guy exclaimed that since they decided so, they need to fight them. Their boss told them to wait. They are also in the kill zone, so they will not shoot at them. Osamu chuckled, and Shoya, looking at his level, thought that it would be difficult to quickly stop the killer. But if he takes Tsuchida hostage, he can break through. When Tsuchida noticed his gaze on himself, he became very worried, and when Shoya began to take out his sword, they prepared to attack. Tsuchida activated the shield and thought that he was not the weak link. The agent's defensive capabilities are not like other classes. He can analyze more incoming attacks. At this distance, he is able to block. The sword shield can only withstand swords. The level of this confrontation is much higher and can handle a full-scale attack from a level 69 warrior, even though it's nothing to him. Shoya can't do anything to him with it. Filled with confidence, he ordered him to surrender, and Osamu asked if he was okay with going himself or being thrown into prison with his comrades. Let him decide. Shoya remained silent, and his second-in-command called out to him with concern. Trying to make a decision, he gritted his teeth and his energy began to sparkle. But then, everything went silent. He didn't pull out his sword, but handed it to the soldier, which surprised the other strong ones, and he said that he did it wisely. His guild members thought that this blow was for show, but the others sided with the boss, and Jiro remained silent. He received a signal from the boss. When he raises his sword, it means to prepare. When he lowers it, it means to attack. They don't know that he and the boss have such signs. He gathered more strength in his hands, and Shoya meanwhile dropped the sword from his hands and it disappeared, which surprised Tsuchida greatly. Shoya took advantage of his confusion and rushed towards him, ignoring the soldier, and he quickly pulled himself together and thought that none of this mattered. This shield has a spell that blocks sword attacks. Seeing his opponent draw his sword, he smirked and thought that even a level 69 person would not be able to cut through his shield, let alone him. But he did not expect that someone would help him. Jiro used his abilities and covered the tip of his boss's sword with many stones, due to which he was able to easily break through his defense. Since the sword turned into a hammer, the shield immediately shattered, and Tsuchida realized that he had screwed up. At that very moment, Shoya threw away his sword and reached for him, but Osamu figured out his plan and rushed towards him, pointing his dagger at his neck, and exclaimed that if he touched him with a finger, he would be executed. Jiro, meanwhile, clenched his hand into a fist, and a wall of thorns grew in front of the assassin and blocked his entire path. His dagger sank into the thorns and a piece of stone flew off, and Shoya continued to walk towards his opponent. Tsuchida stepped back and told the soldiers to kill him, and they opened fire on him. Jiro continued to support the boss. He waved his fingers, and a stone wall grew, blocking them from the gunfire. Shoya smiled and thought that if he could just stop him, they could retreat. He was very close to Tsuchida, but something unexpected happened. When he was about to grab him, his opponent disappeared somewhere, and he looked around to find him. Osamu, holding a piece of stone in his hand, said with a smirk that the stone prison created by his ally plunged him into the shadows, and he noted the remnants of light magic on Tsuchida's shield, thus fulfilling the conditions for activating the assassin's ability, Shadow Trance. He moved Tsuchida to himself and said that without hostages, he lost, and then ordered him to surrender. But for some reason, everyone was very surprised when they looked at him. Even his soldiers nervously called out to him, and he asked what surprised them so much. MC put his hands on Tsuchida's shoulders, and Osamu disagreed with him, asking what was surprising about that. The soldier didn't even turn around out of fear and thought, who is he? Is he Shoya's backup? But how did he sneak up on the killer? He doesn't know who he is, but he is definitely his enemy. Whoever strikes first will win. He will have to take advantage of this. He put his hand on the potion bottle, and Tsuchida, noticing this, became nervous and thought, this is a deadly poison that Tiger Roar prepared to kill a level 90 monster. When did he manage to steal this? Osamu rushed forward, then turned around abruptly, and threw 2 blades smeared with poison at Sora, which made his father very worried about him. The poison began to spread around the area, and Tsuchida covered his airways with his hand, thinking that it would kill everyone. The soldiers did not know what kind of fog it was, and only when they began to fall, choking on foam, did they realize that it was poison. Tsuchida thought that he did not like all this, but at least they killed Shoya's ally. But everything turned out completely differently. He grabbed him, then Osamu, and pulled them both towards him. They were surprised that he could still move even under the influence of poison that could destroy a level 90 monster. They both realized that he was just a monster, and were very scared. It turns out that MC caught 2 blades thrown at him with his mouth. He spat out the knives, then asked where they were going. They both remained silent, and Tsuchida nervously thought that, depending on the specialization, the player's stats vary, but it is always intelligence, perception, strength, agility, and constitution. If he can withstand this poison, then his constitution is on par with level 100 players. Sora told the soldier to order his men to lay down their weapons, to which he gave him a nasty glare before grabbing his arm and flipping over to climb onto his shoulder. Threatening to break his arm, he ordered him to shut his mouth, and Tsuchida smiled, realizing that this was his chance. As long as he could free himself from the grip, he would be able to get out as well. But MC quickly stopped their attempts to get out and delivered a powerful punch that sent the 2 of them flying to the side. They both flew past his father and hit the wall, causing dust to rise. Clearing his throat, Shoya turned around and was greatly surprised that his son could do such a thing to them. And at that very moment, the assassin's body began to emit static. Sora noticed this and glanced back out of the corner of his eye, and Osamu had already appeared behind him and thought that even though he was strong, he doubted that he would be able to react to the shadow trance. He stabbed him in the back with all his might, but he found that he couldn't pierce his skin and realized that his body was like steel. No matter how much force he applied, he couldn't push the dagger further and became very nervous. When he tried to pull it out, he couldn't do it, and MC took advantage of his confusion to strike. Before his fist could connect with his face, Osamu threw his upper body back and immediately increased the distance between them. But despite his dodge, he still got hit and thought, what's going on? Did he hurt him just by swinging? He needs to retreat. A second later, Sora appeared in front of him. He grabbed his face and slammed his head into a rock. He only had time to think that he was so fast before losing consciousness. After dealing with him, MC stood up to the surprised looks of everyone around him, then grabbed the killer and dragged him along with him. The soldiers decided not to tempt fate and do anything, and Sora told his father that he would handle the rest himself. For now, they needed to go home. He agreed to this with a nervous smile, after which they returned to the residence. Shoya entered the room where his family and subordinate were waiting for him, and Yae asked if he had figured everything out. He confirmed this, and his deputy asked if he had managed to find out anything. He sat down next to him and told him that they were silent, but it didn't matter. At least they had found out the location of Tiger Roar. Let them be ready if anything happened. He decided to put his plans for Tiger Roar aside for now and asked his son what had been happening to him for the past 5 years. He told him that after he caught them in a conflict, he realized what he had done. 5 years ago, he was transported to a strange reality and spent all this time killing monsters. It must have been one of the towers. He was locked inside. He told them everything that happened to him in the tower and how the summoner sent him back here. His father thoughtfully said that he only knew of 16 towers, but none of them were like the one he described. He said that meant they didn't know it yet, and Jiru said that if this tower was near shelter number 6, then clearing it out was the top priority. After that, Shoya looked at his son with a smile, glad that he survived, and his deputy laughed and said that he came back 100 times stronger than any of them. Ye touched her son's hand and said that all of that was in the past, he was home now, and her husband added that they would not allow their family to be separated anymore. When his mother's hand touched him, MC realized that their hands were just as scarred, and remembering how they used to live, decided to never leave them again. Suddenly, the lights flickered and then went out completely, plunging the entire residence into darkness, and Sora felt dizzy. Jiro assumed that the lights were out because of the thunderstorm and rain, and his boss said that he hadn't heard of such a forecast. Meanwhile, MC became very nervous because he knew what was about to happen. An illusion appeared next to him and said that it definitely wouldn't let him leave this time. MC was worried that it was him again, but his words were different from last time. Moreover, neither his father nor mother could see him, although they were awakened. Suddenly, Fudel moved behind him. The protagonist was surprised to think that he had disappeared. Had the spell really broken? No, he had simply left his body. He noted with a smile that they had not seen each other for a long time. The protagonist thought that he considered himself a separate person. It did not seem that he could physically incarnate, so it was an illusion. He would deal with it later. Fudel bent down and asked with a smile, was he pretending not to hear him? Did he really think that he was an illusion? Ordinary people love self-deception. He took his eyes and asked, well, how is it? Does he still consider him an illusion? MC was frightened to think that he could not see anything. Could it really be real? Suddenly his father asked worriedly, what happened to his eyes? The mother tried to use the skill Purification on him, but a system window appeared, notifying that the target was not under the influence of the curse. The protagonist worriedly thought that this was a real physical embodiment. This is bad. Everyone here is in danger. He made a sharp dash and began to attack the god of darkness, who, in turn, mockingly asked what he was afraid of. The father shouted excitedly, is there really an enemy here? He does not see anyone here. The protagonist, grabbing him, asked why he was chasing him. Fudel replied that he misunderstood. Come to think of it, he did not even introduce himself. He is from the noble divine race Asa, they call him the god of darkness. And he absorbed the black crystal, the divine power of the Asa race, left in the abyss. Simply put, his power of darkness. The god's minions are now keeping an eye on him, because he arbitrarily left the abyss. Those same henchmen are already gathering nearby. If he doesn't want to die, let him go back to the tower with him. MC thought that he was probably talking about those ESRS his mother told him about. His father, taking the sword, exclaimed with a serious face that he didn't know what was going on, but that guy was dangerous. They needed to kill him. The woman stopped him and said that they just needed to watch first. The protagonist noted that it meant that the gods were having a hard time these days. What could a couple of ESRs do to him anyway? Fudel exclaimed furiously. Let him not brag just because he beat him up once with pure luck. The other ESRs are incomparable to his current level of strength, and he limited his view without even straining himself. The protagonist, with a serious face, continuing to hold him, asked why on earth he should believe his words. The god of darkness laughed and shouted that he was a stupid plebeian. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to believe. Only when everything here is covered in blood, it will be too late to regret. MC thought that he shouldn't believe him. But there is still a chance that he is right. What should he do now? Suddenly, the monk Yukio entered the room, who used his power on the god of darkness. The main character's vision returned, and he wondered if he could see again. His father, seeing him, exclaimed joyfully. He wondered if this was the monk from the entrance to the shelter? The protagonist called out to his father and asked if they knew each other. He answered with a smile that they were not just acquainted. They founded a guild together. Fudel, under the influence of the monk's magic, shouted discontentedly, let him go. MC pointed at him and asked if he could see him. Yukio began to remove the blindfold from his eyes and answered that he had something to talk to him. It was urgent. The father asked what exactly was going on here. He said that he would explain as soon as he spoke with his son. After some time, they went into seclusion, and the protagonist asked what the urgency was. The monk replied that he was not an ASR, but his eyes could see divine power. This was because he had learned the forbidden art to seal the god himself. Although his divine power was of the same nature, his power far exceeded that of any deity. He did not know how this power came to him, but they did not have time to figure it out now. Incredibly powerful entities were already flocking to this city, and, most likely, they were attracted by his power. He did not know what happened between him and the god, but this guy's words were true. However, he could not return to the abyss. The inhabitants of the tower would be more terrible than the ESR. They were eager to trick him back into taking away his divine power. The best way out would be to leave this place and join the military. MC asked in surprise, what was he talking about, those people who wanted to blow it up? Yukio laughed and replied that the military was in their repertoire, but even among them, there were trustworthy ones. The SRs would not dare touch him if he officially joined the military. He wondered if his departure could guarantee the safety of his family. The monarch agreed and explained that the SRs were bound by an unspoken rule not to interfere in the lives of ordinary citizens without reason. It was only because of their traditions that the alliance lasted so long. Besides, in his presence they would not risk acting rashly. After all, the Rakuns were not inferior in strength to the SRs. At this time in the Tiger Roar Guild, Hiro Ryusei, a level 105 Ares SR, discontentedly asked what kind of stupid mission this was. Not only was there no system, they also lost 4 SRs because of him. Shiraya Yukinojo, a level 106 Earth SR, noted that according to the report, Sakuya's son had been missing for several years. There's a high chance he was pulled down by the tower. Hiro alone would be enough to deal with this brat. The guy himself exclaimed furiously. What did he say? Rimdoju, SR Athena level 106, put her hand on his shoulder with a displeased face. Rich noted that this time he himself would take part in the operation. Kaichi Iwagaya, Hermes Ezra, level 101, asked in surprise himself. He explained that this was an order directly from Zeus. This annoying Sora must be eliminated at all costs. Tower 16 near shelter number 6 is about to activate. They are well aware of the importance of seizing control of it. The stubborn Unification Guild refused the offer of Tiger's Roar and plans to independently investigate the tower. Therefore, their target is not only Sora, but also his parents, the founders of the guild. They will get rid of everyone at once. At this time, in the Unification Guild, the monk said that this is all. Let him come to the command center and meet Mi Tonosaki there. He knows her well, so he is sure that she will protect him. He will also ask her to check the curse formation. If there is a battle, then even Tiger's Roar will not be able to do anything while this is working. The mother called out to the protagonist and said with a smile, "Let him not worry. The guild is based in this place for a reason." He answered with a calm face that he understood. After 15 minutes, the monk was sitting on the street. Suddenly, he felt a force and thought that they were here. In an instant, all Esras and their leader from the Tiger Roar Guild entered the territory and launched their numbing magic. Yukio used Curtain of Golden Bells and created a barrier that reflects their magic. He worriedly thought that 4 ESRs came at once, enriched himself. The leader called out to Shiraya, who immediately chained up everyone from the Unification Guild. The monk thought that things were bad. All the guild members, and even the cover squad, were captured by this evil spirit. They were trapped, and there was no way for them to get out. Shoya used the scanning eye and found that Richt, Hiro, Rim, Shiraya, Kaichi, Yae, himself, Moshihito, and Yukio were in the area. After scanning, he noticed that the level difference was huge. The monk wondered what kind of business could bring them there in the middle of the night. Shiraya reported that the evil spirit said that it was not here. Richt approached him and asked where it was. Yukio replied that he had no idea who it was. Hiro exclaimed furiously, what was he talking about? He smirked and noted that they lacked manners. The guild member furiously said that if he wanted to die, let him say so. At this time, Yae, who was in the building, used the barrier activation. In an instant, all the ESRs were hit by a weakening curse. Hiro swung his fist furiously and said that this pissed him off. Even if he was cursed by a level 68 trash, he could still destroy their guild single-handedly. Yukio calmly grabbed his fist with a smirk and replied that he was underestimating the Unification Guild too much. A system window appeared, notifying that ESR Ares was weakened from level 105 to 71. Hiro asked in bewilderment that his level had dropped by 30 steps. He asked with a smile, what can he do without his high level? The monk dealt a powerful blow, from which the enemy flew away. Under the spell, all the members of the Tiger's Roar Guild were weakened. Shoya pointed out with a serious face that everyone within the curse's range would lose half of their caster's level. In other words, their level would drop by 34 steps. Do they really think they can fight in such a state? Rick chuckled and replied that it was even more interesting. He called out to Rim, and the girl used her ability to teleport them to the Athena arena. The Tiger Roar Guildmaster mockingly noted that while he had them in his hands, Sora would crawl to him himself. It had been a long time since they had a fight on equal terms. It even excites him. Let them not let him get bored until the protagonist falls into his trap. At this time, the members of the Unification Guild burst into the territory. They began to shout, "Where's the boss and everyone else? What did he do to the boss?" Richt, armed with a spear, said that they will simply eliminate the annoying interference. At this time, the protagonist was in the city. He landed next to the people and, seeing me, thought that this must be the girl. MC raised his hands and said that he was from the Unification Guild. He needs protection from the military. She ordered the military to lower their weapons and asked, "Is he Sora?" She just needed to ask him about something. At this time, in the arena, Athena, Rim began to use her ability and shouted, "Let the gods behold her battle. May their miraculous power guide her." After that, a huge angel appeared in the sky. The girl explained that each side must choose 5 representatives. The first team to achieve 3 wins will receive the blessing of Olympus. Hero added with a sly grin that the losers will be incinerated by divine light and scattered to the wind. Shoya asked with a serious face what 5 representatives means. There are 8 of them here. Rim replied that for now, that's it. The star of the show is still on the way. So, who will be the first to challenge to death? The protagonist's father received a system window that said that ESR Hero was challenging him to a fight. The monk stepped forward and noted that he allowed himself to think superficially, which is why they got into trouble. Shoya put his hand on his shoulder and replied that it wasn't his fault. Besides, they were all in the same boat now. Yai's curse had lowered their levels, so they had a chance in one-on-one battles. Jiro approached them and noted that he was right. She is currently unfit for battle, so if at least the 2 of them can handle it, victory is theirs. Yukio said with a serious face that ES Ares is the strongest of them all. After becoming an ES, he single-handedly defeated an entire guild of 3 ES by taking advantage of Ares' superior skills. But let them not be afraid, he has one way. Let him fight first. The monk entered the arena and said that he accepts the challenge. The angels shouted that, let there be a battle. Hero rushed forward with lightning speed and shouted that he had enough of his chatter. Yukio began to parry the attacks and deftly dodge. He mockingly shouted, can he really only run away? Shoya, watching their battle, happily noted that he was doing well. Hero began to press again and, having dealt a blow, retreated. Shiraya, watching this, asked, did he himself approach and now he is breaking the distance? Apparently, it is not easy for him. Rim answered that this guy is not weak. Shoya worriedly asked if he is okay. Hero with a grin asked how he likes these fangs of Cadmos. He, being with a wounded hand, worriedly wondered, is this the snake Ares? He would never have thought that he would inhabit the body of the Asura Ares and help him in close combat. Hero, with a sly smile again lightning fast, went on the attack and shouted that they have just begun. Cadmos has not yet eaten. The monk again began to dodge, but it was already difficult for him. When the snake Ares itself bit him, he fearfully thought that it became faster. Yukio used the skill, Curtain of Golden Bells, pushed the enemy away, and then thought that it was he who slowed down. A system window appeared, notifying that Cadmos' poison had reduced all stats as a result of poisoning. The poison fangs absorbed the strength and regenerative ability from the blood drunk by Cadmos himself. Hero mockingly noted that he was strong for a monk. But he thought that this was his limit. Shoya, watching this, used the scanning skill and wondered if the battle continued. The gap in strength would only widen. Would their warrior cope? Hero pounced on him again, and while striking, shouted, well, how can he handle the Cadmos poison that is spreading throughout his body? They will see how long he can last. At that moment, the monk began to say a prayer, saying that through the emptiness of all realities of Dharma. The guy, hearing this, mockingly exclaimed that he was praying. Does he really think that God will help him? Rim, watching this, asked if it was her imagination or if he was being enveloped by divine power. Shiraya remarked that it was strange, he wasn't even an Esser. Where did he get his divine power from then? Shoya, seeing this, happily said that it was unthinkable. It was a risky move, but to find a good solution in such a situation. He thought that this match could still be fought for. Yukio folded his arms and said that everything is one in essence, forged in the reality of the Vajra. He bowed to the embodiment of all Buddhas. In an instant, the Vajra Bodhisattva mantra of 100 verses appeared next to him. Hero said with a smirk that he spat on his god. Did he really think that this pathetic trick would stop him? The monk, covering his armor with divine power, flew into the air. The guy smirked and shouted that he was an idiot. Was he really trying to even their chances by wearing armor made of divine power? He liked his determination. Was this his entire winning plan? He thought that among the people he had killed, there were idiots like him. They thought they could block Cadmos' fangs by covering themselves with a shield of divine power. But they didn't know that divine power was a resource even richer than fresh blood. It would devour him, just like that poor guy. Let him fall into the abyss of despair and die. Hero swung his arm to deliver a powerful attack, when Yukio suddenly got ahead of him and struck him in the face. He thought in disbelief that he had managed to suppress Cadmos' poison and regain his speed with this divine power. The monk continued his combo and delivered a powerful kick to his stomach. Hero, coughing up blood, thought that not only speed, but also strength. His reflexes, he had improved on all fronts. However, he is the perfect bait for Cadmos. He grabbed the opponent's hand with the help of a snake and grinned, saying, let him stop kicking and just let Cadmos devour him already. His divine power will belong to him. Suddenly, Hero began to overflow with divine energy and fearfully wondered, what is happening? He does not control the divine power? Yukio asked with a smile. Is it not too early for him to rejoice? The power of Rakan is a heavy burden for the body. He pushed the opponent away and began to deliver numerous blows right to the face. Hero excitedly shouted, does he really mean that Cadmos cannot handle his divine power? That simply cannot be. The monk asked with a smile, asking why he assumed that this was divine power. He delivered a powerful control blow and slammed him into the ground, and then noted that now he understands why he so wanted to retrain as Rakan back then. Hero stood up and asked, did he have no godly powers left, even to simply maintain the form of a snake? Then it was all or nothing. He released a huge number of thorns from himself, released an incredibly powerful poison, and shouted that he was offering Ares the blood of a poisonous snake. Let him grant him his spear so that he could fight until his body decays. Rim, watching this, noted that even an ESer could not use this, did not offer an appropriate sacrifice, and that was temporary. It carries the power of a god and adapts to the fighting style of the ESer bearer. Shiraya answered with a smile that this is the insurmountable difference between an ordinary player and an ESer. It's all over for a monk. The girl thought that only Hero offered the poisoned blood of a snake as a sacrifice, which Ares himself gave to him. If the gods find out about this little deception, they will definitely be furious. However, Ares is merciful, he will forgive him for the victory. However, if he were to lose, she couldn't even imagine what fate would befall him. No, an Isar who had mastered a divine weapon could not possibly lose to a simple player. At that moment, Hero hit his spear and went on the attack. Yukio worriedly wondered if he was going to get closer again. Where did the spear go? He couldn't reach it at such a distance, could he? He tried to jump back, but the enemy released the spear and slightly injured him, and then used an explosion, and a powerful magical explosion was heard at the point of impact. The monk thought that he was lucky to avoid the blow with the help of a well-timed mantra. He hoped that this spear was at least not poisonous like his snake. A system window appeared, notifying him that due to the destructive effect of the Ares spear robe, he lost 50% of his defensive properties. He worriedly thought that it had half destroyed his armor. Hero began to attack again and release a huge number of spikes. Yukio, trying to dodge, thought in fear that he was able to emit a spear not only with his fist, but also with other parts of his body. He began to strike many times with a malicious smile and shouted that they would see how he would dodge now. A huge number of spear blades appeared, which sought to hit the monk. He thought that he could not read his movements at all. Each missed blow only destroyed him more. Was he so strong even after taking karmic damage? If he had not weakened it, he would already be dead. He must keep his distance. Yukio, having once again charged with divine power, tried to strike and force the enemy to retreat. He put out his hand and said that all three realities would be purified, strife and sins would disappear. Hero, cutting his palm, shouted with a mad smile that he was already at the limit, right? Let him not think that distance will save him. He released poison on the ground and directed it towards the enemy. The monk, using the ability, said that the Silent Sutra is Onran. In an instant, a divine circle with a seal appeared above Hero, and a system window appeared, which said that this is the embodiment of holiness that purifies and drives out evil spirits. The effectiveness of the poisonous snake's blood is decreasing. He shouted with a nervous smile. Does he really want to limit his movement and win due to distance? How naive he is. The guy released a huge amount of red mass in his direction. Shoya excitedly shouted, let him be careful. The mass reached the monk and spikes began to appear lightning fast, which pierced his hat. He thought excitedly that he was almost caught. Suddenly, Athena noted that interference was unacceptable. As punishment, she set the man on fire and walked away. Ye, seeing this, excitedly began to heal him. Shoya, lying on the ground, thought that the fire had disappeared. But a system window appeared, notifying that the fire of divine punishment was reducing his life force by 15%. Hero noted that he would have died if that guy had not interfered. Oh well, he would still get it for this. The monk with a serious face thought that close combat was already too risky, and he also had long-range blood harpoons in his arsenal. Considering his remaining strength, he would last another 3 minutes maximum, but he needed to fight. There was no choice. Hero menacingly pointed out that he should stop wasting time. Victory was his. Yukio began to use the ability and pronounced that all dharmas were becoming one. He thought that arhats are divided by rank, the heavenly eye, the wise eye, the eye of Dharma, and the eye of Buddha. If he, the wise it, cannot win, then let the eye of Dharma open. The eye of Dharma greatly accelerates perception, but it does not last very long. He needs to quickly find a way to break through. There is not much divine power in this spear. Moreover, that bloody harpoon earlier. Wait, he got it. Hero tried to strike with a spear with a malicious smile, but the monk grabbed it and happily noted that this is the essence of his bloody spears. It is quite unexpectedly simple. He made a sharp movement of his hand and smashed it into small pieces. The guy exclaimed in complete shock that this cannot be. Shiraya, seeing this, screamed in horror. How could he block the thinnest threads of blood? Rim in shock suggested that it seemed to her that his eyes were able to see through the technique. Shoya happily shouted that he really found a way to resist the Esser Ares. Yukio, having absorbed his power after the blow, noted that such an amount of negative energy accumulated in his body gives rise to unholy thoughts. He will cleanse every last filth. He got into a fighting stance and began to use the ability. Hero exclaimed in displeasure that he understood the attack, and so what? blood touched by his divine power can be controlled without hindrance. Rim noted that the divine power in the blood is not uniform. Considering that the blood is so thin, it is able to pierce the enemy's defense. He gets out of this situation. The guy, having delivered the attack, with a malicious smile shouted that he has nowhere to run. Let him die right now. The monk used the Eye of Dharma and, having bound it, avoided the attack, and then said that all entities dwelling in the darkness of ignorance, bound by passions, will fall into the three paths of evil, gaining only endless suffering. Rim excitedly shouted, let him beware of his eyes. All his attacks are meaningless. He sees the movements of divine power. Hero nervously shouted, what is this? Shoya, hearing this, displeasedly called out to the angel and noted that this woman was interfering in the course of the fight. She nervously pointed her finger and exclaimed that she was giving her a warning. Jiru displeasedly exclaimed that she was immediately giving their boss a punishment, and only a warning to her? He calmed him down and said that they just need to wait for his victory. At this time, Hero furiously said that he did not need her help. Suddenly, he noticed a huge spirit standing behind the monk. The guy furiously shouted that he was a damned monk. Yukio said with a serious face that the word had been spoken, may he appear before them, overcoming obstacles and fooling the world, while the suffering whisper his name. He thought that this was the sutra that monks study first. But this does not mean that it is weak. On the contrary, the power of Fudo Myo-O, as well as all his offensive and defensive powers, is doubled. However, this takes 30 seconds, and during this period, one must not lose concentration for a second. Reciting a sutra right in front of an enemy is an incredible humiliation. Hero, piercing himself, began to release blood to try to somehow attack the enemy. Rim, watching this, worriedly thought that this fool should have interrupted the sutra after the seal. He began to scream furiously, let him die. The monk, dodging volleys of blood, thought that he was conjuring the power to suppress the blood of the snake, and an attempt to overcome this block requires a huge amount of divine power. A sudden attack is meaningless in front of the Dharma Eye, it can't even be scratched by it. He only has 16 seconds left. Hero continued to spit out blood with incredible fury, and wondered why his eyes were bleeding. He should be at his limit already. Don't let them make him laugh. It can't even break his concentration. After 16 seconds, Yukio said that the power of this prayer is like the virtue of a small child, like flaming ice doused with oil, and like water flowing through the heart of a tree. Everything flows together in his head, like Bhagavan. The moment after saying these words, the spirit of the sutra dealt a powerful blow, which knocked Hero down. The monk wondered if he had finished him off before the Dharma Eye reached its limit. Athena declared that the first battle had ended in the victory of the Unification Guild. Yukio had won. After some time, Rim healed the boy and remarked that he should try harder. Suddenly, the angels of Ares appeared, saying that they were sick of the Colosseum of Athena's hypocrisy. And he lost in such a place? Hero excitedly tried to apologize, but one of them furiously shouted at him to shut up. His father was giving him a message. He said that he was greatly disappointed in him. He was honored to receive it from his hand. The other, holding a sword, noticed that the sword of Damocles also wanted to take a piece. They began to strike at his back. Shoya, seeing this, was surprised to ask, is this how they treat their own Ezers? The angels, with malicious smiles, having beaten him, told him to consider this his father's last mercy. When they disappeared, Hero furiously shouted that he would kill the monk next time. Shiraya, with a serious face, walked forward and replied that there would be no next time. He created a scythe and added that now they would burn alive in the all-consuming flames of Hades. Shoya, with a serious face, said that he would take it upon himself. Yae, holding the item in her hands, said, let him take it. He was going against the Reaper himself, and he was able to call upon the spirits, but this would help. He took it and said that he would find a use for it. A system window appeared, which said that an item was received from Yae. It was placed in the inventory. The monk and Jiru wished him luck. Shoya, setting off, thought that as a samurai, he could project the aura of the blade to push the enemy at a distance. But it takes time to create a charge. Still, in one-on-one battles, close combat is the best solution. First, he will close the distance with a quick step. Then he will bring down a series of quick blows on him so that he does not have time to come to his senses. And then, he will find a vulnerability and take him out with a final blow. The tactic is quite straightforward, but effective. But in case it doesn't work, suddenly, Athena announced, let them take their positions. Now, let there be battle. In an instant, Shiraya sent a huge number of spirits towards his opponent and shouted, let him die. Shoya thought with a serious face that he would slip between his spirits with a quick step and analyze the movements. He cut the spirits in an instant and approached the opponent's back. Shiraya mockingly asked, is this all a samurai can do? Is this the same old tactic? He cut the body, but suddenly saw that it was only a clone. Suddenly, a whole bunch of dark spirits flew at him. Shuya cut them all and tried to attack again, but this time he also only defeated a clone. The Reaper mockingly shouted that it was useless. His attacks will not harm someone who does not even have a physical form. The samurai looked back and thought, what is he over there? He made a sharp dash and made an attack, but only cut another clone. Shiraya mockingly shouted that his attempts are futile. Just let him admit defeat. He has an unlimited number of vengeful spirits. He can't cut them all. A samurai who can't even see his enemy is useless. Shoya retreated and tried to charge his sword with aura, but suddenly many enemy clones approached him, and he exclaimed that he will not let him do that. He made many slashing strikes again and destroyed another pack of clones. Rim, watching the battle, noted that this looked more like a fight between an ordinary person and an ESR. Hiro answered discontentedly that he was just lucky. She said that if he didn't know, it's actually very difficult for a samurai to lead a guild. The girl looked at Yae and thought that for a middle ranker, she was somehow too relaxed. Apparently, they still had an ace up their sleeve. At that moment, the samurai got into a fighting stance. Shiraya, sending even more spirits in his direction, asked what a new move this was. Rim excitedly shouted, let him be careful. In an instant, Shoya made an 8-fold jump and, having purified all the spirits along the way, appeared behind the enemy. When the 6th shelter had just appeared, the military and players united to look for monster nests. And near the 6th shelter, they found a mine from which monsters were pouring out. This place became the first research base. At first, the monsters were small caliber, so things went well. But when the researchers went deeper into the mine, everything changed. The types of monsters, their numbers, and even their ranks. Inside the cave was a whole ecosystem of monsters, like a hidden nest. In the deepest parts of the cave, a rank 80 spider settled. At that moment, humanity had no chance. And then Shoya distracted the monster so that the rest could escape. And no one knows what happened next, but 3 days later, a cry of despair from a defeated monster echoed through the cave. And as if in response, the cave began to collapse. The man himself jumped out of the cave at the last moment, pushing off from the falling stones. And the skill he used for this was called 8-fold jump. This is a terrifying technique that allows you to make 8 consecutive jumps, each one several times faster than the previous one. During the battle, Shoya, having cut the clone again, thought that he had already used 3 jumps to avoid the vengeful spirits. This would be the 4th jump. He rushed towards the enemy with lightning speed and struck. Shiraya was frightened, wondering what the hell was going on. He was jumping faster and faster. He created another clone and was able to dodge the attack. The samurai made a 5th jump and struck again. The Reaper again barely dodged and avoided damage. Later, he made 6 and 7 instant jumps and, having killed the clones, thought that with the power inherited from that hero, he eliminated the surrounding spirits. Using the advantage in speed, he will cut him down before new spirits have time to form. Shoya made the 8th lightning jump and, having closed the distance as much as possible, thought that as he thought, if he overtook him, he simply would not have time to recreate them. If he could reduce everything to close combat, then he could win. The samurai took a fighting stance and used the skill Hero's Legacy. Rim, watching this, noted that it was not surprising that he held the position of the guild leader for so long, although he was not an ESR. With such strength, one could easily compare with most guilds. There were many guesses about how the tower was formed. The most widespread theory was that the towers are a combination of human history and mythology into a single whole. History and myths in this picture are inseparable, and the gods from myths, accordingly, are opposed to heroes from history. But becoming the chosen one of the gods or the heir of the hero are fundamentally different things. If becoming a god's chosen one requires fighting, then a hero's legacy is more like a destiny. What a lucky bastard. Shiraya shouted with a smirk. Did he really think he could defeat him in close combat? A mortal's weapon was no match for a Reaper's scythe. Shoya, continuing to press his opponent, thought that the Reaper's scythe was certainly a terrifying weapon. But in terms of range and reach, it clearly had the advantage. Still, considering it was a divine artifact, it would be hard for a human to handle it. If he used it like a normal weapon, swinging it wide to strike at a distance, it would only create a vulnerability. The moment his opponent tried to strike, the samurai aimed his sword and smirked, saying that he felt like the gods hadn't taught him how to properly handle a weapon. He thrust his sword into him and said with a smile that he had originally planned to use this skill to dodge if necessary, but the 8th jump came in handy here. Jiru, seeing this, happily shouted that it was over. Yae answered with a serious face that it was not yet. Suddenly, Shiraya smiled again and said that his jubilant expression was really driving him crazy. Shoya wondered in fear, did he really miss? Is the creation of spirits used without any restrictions? The Reaper asked with a grin why he thought that he could only move between ghostly bodies. He covered his hand with spirit magic and touched him directly to the heart. The samurai stepped back and worriedly thought that things were bad. A system window appeared, notifying him that he was marked with the enemy's Hades seal. He thought that he had been careless. This simply couldn't be. He was able to give the form of a spirit even to his body, which eliminated any physical damage. Shiraya, having created many spirits again, said with a smile that, if he caught him 4 times, he would become his spirit slave. Now let him not expect any favors from him.